Welcome to our comprehensive guide on the rights and powers of the Karta and Coparceners in a joint Hindu family. In this video, we'll explore who can act as a Karta, the unique position and authority they hold, and the legal rights and remedies available to Coparceners and third parties. Understanding these concepts is crucial for anyone dealing with joint family property or interested in Hindu law. Let's begin by clarifying the basic structure and roles within a joint Hindu family, setting the stage for a deeper dive into the legal nuances that govern these relationships. Karta is the manager of a joint Hindu family, traditionally the father or, if he is not alive, the senior-most male member. This role is not appointed but arises by virtue of birth and seniority. Importantly, after the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005, daughters can also become Kartas if they are the senior-most Coparcener. However, minors and widows generally cannot act as Kartas. In special cases, such as when the father is deceased and only minor sons remain, the mother may manage the property as a natural guardian as recognized by courts. This evolution reflects both tradition and modern legal reforms. Position of the Karta is unique and not comparable to a trustee or partner. The Karta's authority is derived from birth, not appointment or consent. As long as the Karta is alive, regardless of age or health, he or she retains the position. The Karta acts as the head of the family, managing all affairs and representing the family in legal and financial matters. While the Karta is not strictly accountable unless accused of misappropriation or fraud, under certain schools of law such as Dayabhaga, there is a greater duty to account for dealings with family property. Karta wields significant powers as long as the family remains joint. These powers include control over income and expenditure, the ability to alienate property for legal necessity or benefit of the estate, contracting and acknowledging debts, starting new businesses, representing the family in legal matters, and more. The Karta's authority is broad, but it is not absolute. Certain actions require consent or must meet legal standards, especially when it comes to alienating family property. Let's break down these powers in detail, starting with financial management. Karta has complete control over the joint family's income and how it is spent. This includes expenses for maintenance, residence, education, marriages, religious ceremonies, and other family needs. However, the Karta cannot use family funds for personal or unauthorized purposes. If misappropriation occurs, the Karta is liable to compensate the family. This financial stewardship is central to the Karta's role, ensuring the welfare and continuity of the family unit. Karta can alienate joint family property in three main situations: legal necessity, benefit of the estate, or to fulfill indispensable religious or charitable duties. In these cases, the consent of other Coparceners is implied. If none of these grounds exist, explicit consent from all Coparceners is required. Alienations made without proper grounds or consent are not void from the start, but are voidable at the option of the other Coparceners. This ensures a balance between managerial authority and family interests. Legal necessity justifying alienation of property includes paying government revenue, family debts, litigation costs, defending members in criminal cases, maintenance, marriage expenses, funeral ceremonies, building a family house, and augmenting family livelihood. These examples, drawn from case law, illustrate the practical scenarios where the Karta's power to alienate property is recognized. The underlying principle is the welfare and continuity of the family, not personal gain. Alienation for the benefit of the estate includes acquiring advantageous property, consolidating land holdings, selling unproductive assets, improving family property, or making gifts to defeat preemption claims. These actions must be in the family's best interest, not for speculative or risky ventures. Courts have recognized these as valid grounds for the Karta's exercise of power, provided the intent is genuine and for the collective benefit. When the Karta is the father, he enjoys two extra powers: making reasonable gifts out of affection and selling or mortgaging joint property to discharge his own antecedent debts, provided these debts are not for illegal or immoral purposes. These powers are unique to the father's role and reflect his traditional authority within the family structure, but they are still subject to legal scrutiny and limitations. Landmark case Hanuman Prasad v. Musammat Babui clarified the Karta's power to alienate property for necessity or benefit. The court held that the manager's authority is limited and must be exercised prudently, with the lender required to verify the necessity. If the lender acts honestly and with due caution, the transaction is generally upheld, even if the necessity is later questioned. This principle applies to managers acting for minors, widows, religious endowments, and estates of lunatics. Karta has implied authority to contract debts and pledge family property for family purposes. Such debts are binding on all family members, but the Karta is also personally liable. This power enables the Karta to manage family finances effectively, but it comes with the responsibility to ensure that debts are incurred for legitimate family needs and not for personal benefit. Karta can acknowledge debts owed by the family, but cannot relinquish debts due to the family or revive time-barred debts. This ensures that the family's financial interests are protected and that the Karta acts within the bounds of his authority. The power to acknowledge debts is important for maintaining the family's creditworthiness and legal standing. Karta has absolute power to give a valid discharge for debts owed to the family. This authority can be exercised even if there are disagreements within the family. However, minors cannot claim certain legal protections in these situations. The ability to settle debts is a key aspect of the Karta's financial management responsibilities. Karta can refer disputes related to joint family property to arbitration, provided the action is bona fide and for the family's benefit. All family members, including minors, are bound by the arbitration outcome. This power helps resolve conflicts efficiently, but the Karta must act honestly and without collusion. Karta represents the joint family in all legal matters, including lawsuits and other proceedings. Any decree passed against the Karta is binding on the entire family. However, if a member believes the Karta acted beyond his powers, that member should be joined as a party to the suit. This ensures fair representation and protection of individual interests within the family. The Karta has the authority to enter into compromises on behalf of the family, whether in legal disputes or other matters. This power is essential for resolving conflicts and maintaining harmony within the family, but it must be exercised in good faith and with the family's best interests in mind. Karta's duties include rendering accounts to Coparceners, recovering debts due to the family, spending reasonably and not starting new businesses or alienating property without necessary consent. While the Karta is not generally liable to account for past dealings unless there is proof of misappropriation or fraud, transparency and fairness are expected. These duties ensure that the Karta's powers are balanced by accountability. Coparceners, as members of the joint Hindu family, enjoy several important rights. These include joint ownership and possession of family property, the right to maintenance, and the ability to challenge improper alienations. Coparceners also have the right to seek partition and to restrain the Karta from acting against the family's interests. These rights form the foundation of the joint family system. Coparcener cannot gift his undivided interest in the family property, except with the consent of all Coparceners and only in favor of the entire group. However, under Section 30 of the Hindu Succession Act, a Coparcener can now dispose of his interest by will. The rules for sale or mortgage of undivided interest vary by state, with some requiring consent and others not. These rules protect the collective nature of joint family property. Coparcener's gift of his undivided interest is generally void unless all Coparceners consent, and the gift benefits the entire group. This restriction ensures that the integrity of the joint family property is maintained and prevents unilateral actions that could harm the collective interests of the family. Under Section 30 of the Hindu Succession Act, a Coparcener can now dispose of his interest in the joint family property by will or other testamentary means. This modern provision allows for greater flexibility in estate planning, but the will only takes effect upon the testator's death and is subject to the birth of new Coparceners before that time. Some states, a Coparcener can sell or mortgage his undivided interest without consent, while in others, such as West Bengal and Uttar Pradesh, consent is required unless the sale is for legal necessity or to pay antecedent debts. These regional differences reflect the diversity of legal traditions within India and aim to balance individual and family interests. Coparcener's undivided interest can be taken in execution of a court decree for his separate debts, but only up to his share. Attachment before death is possible, ensuring that creditors can recover debts while protecting the rights of other family members. This provision balances individual liability with collective ownership. Coparcener can renounce his entire interest in the joint family property without the consent of others, but the renunciation must be in favor of the entire group. Renunciation does not cause a general partition, and future sons may still have rights depending on whether the Coparcener remains a family member. This rule preserves the continuity of the joint family. If only one Coparcener remains, he can dispose of the property as his own. If another member is born after alienation, that member cannot challenge the transaction. However, the sole surviving Coparcener cannot alienate interests vested in females under Section 6 of the Hindu Succession Act. This ensures that vested rights are protected even as the family structure changes. Purchaser of a Coparcener's undivided interest does not acquire joint possession with other Coparceners. In most states, the alienee's remedy is to compel partition, not to claim joint use. This rule prevents outsiders from disrupting the collective enjoyment of family property and maintains the integrity of the joint family system. Purchaser of an undivided interest can sue for partition, but the scope of this right varies by state. In some regions, only a general partition is allowed, while in others, partition of specific property is possible. This ensures that the interests of both the alienee and the family are balanced and that property disputes are resolved fairly. If the Coparcener who sold his interest dies, the purchaser can still sue for partition. The right to partition is not lost by the death of the vendor, ensuring that the alienee's interests are protected even after changes in family membership. The share allotted to a transferee on partition is determined by the transferor's entitlement at the time of alienation, not at the time of partition. This rule ensures certainty and fairness in the distribution of property, preventing disputes over changing shares. An alienee has an equitable right to have the property or share assigned to him on partition if it can be done without injustice to other Coparceners. If not possible, the court may award equivalent value from the transferor's share. This principle ensures that both the alienee and the family are treated fairly during partition. Courts have held that equitable relief by way of substituted property cannot be claimed by purchasers at court sales, as there is no warranty of title or privity of contract. This distinction protects the rights of family members and ensures that only legitimate transactions receive equitable consideration. Purchaser is generally not entitled to mean past profits between the date of purchase and the date of partition. However, if partition occurs without division by metes and bounds, the purchaser may claim profits from those in possession. This rule addresses the complexities of joint ownership and ensures fair compensation where appropriate. If a coparcener dies before completing the sale of his interest, the purchaser can still sue for specific performance of the agreement. This right ensures that contractual obligations are honored, even if the original party is no longer alive, providing security to purchasers. Purchaser of the entire family's interest in coparcenary property can challenge previous alienations. This right allows the new owner to protect his interests and ensures that all transactions affecting the property are subject to scrutiny and legal challenge if necessary. Transferee of a coparcener's interest takes the property subject to all existing charges, encumbrances, and liabilities. For example, a purchaser of a son's share is liable for the father's debts unless those debts are immoral. This rule ensures that purchasers are aware of and responsible for the property's legal burdens. Consider a scenario where a mortgage's ancestral property and a son B is born later. After partition, both A and B receive shares, but the mortgagee can enforce the mortgage against the entire property, as A had full rights at the time of the transaction. This principle applies to both sales and mortgages, ensuring that third-party rights are protected. Non-alienating coparceners have the right to sue for partition of the alienated property, but not for their individual share. This ensures that the collective interests of the family are prioritized and that disputes are resolved in a manner consistent with the joint family system. The alienee must respect the existing rights and liabilities attached to the property. They cannot claim more than what the transferor was entitled to and must abide by the rules governing joint family property. This duty ensures that the integrity of the family property is maintained, even after alienation. Courts play a crucial role in ensuring fair partition and resolving disputes among coparceners and alienees. They assess the equities, value of properties, and ensure that all parties receive their due share. Judicial intervention is essential for maintaining justice and order in complex family property matters. Recent legal reforms, especially the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005, have expanded the rights of daughters and modernized the joint family system. These changes reflect evolving social values and aim to promote gender equality and fairness in property rights. Understanding these reforms is essential for navigating contemporary family law. Managing joint family property involves numerous challenges, including balancing individual and collective interests, resolving disputes, and adapting to changing family structures. The legal framework provides guidance, but practical issues often require negotiation, compromise, and sometimes judicial intervention to ensure harmony and justice. Given the complexity of joint family property law, seeking professional legal advice is crucial. Lawyers can help interpret statutes, assess rights and liabilities, and guide families through partition, alienation, and dispute resolution processes. Proper legal guidance ensures that all actions are compliant and that the interests of all parties are protected. Summarize, the Karta holds a central role in managing joint family property with wide-ranging powers and responsibilities. Coparceners enjoy significant rights but must act within the legal framework. Alienees have remedies and duties, and courts ensure fairness in all transactions. Legal reforms continue to shape the landscape, promoting equality and justice in family property matters. Families should maintain clear records, communicate openly, and seek consensus on major decisions regarding joint property. Regular meetings and transparent accounting can prevent disputes. When disagreements arise, mediation or legal intervention may be necessary to protect everyone's interests and preserve family harmony. Understanding the rights and powers of the Karta and Coparceners is essential for managing joint family property effectively. The law provides a framework for balancing authority, accountability, and fairness. By staying informed and seeking professional guidance when needed, families can navigate the complexities of joint ownership and ensure the well-being of all members.